Good evening and welcome to the 10th and final Selborne College and Old Selbornian Association webinar for 2022, which has been part of the 150 Jubilee celebration. I'm Alan Parsons and I'm the Executive Director of the Old Selbornian Association. The theme of this webinar is about Old Boys and Selborne influences and the Old Selbornian community. We will get thoughts from Old Selbornians who were all custodians and head boys during their time at Selborne College. All the panelists are also celebrating a milestone at this year's Founders Day, from a 50th reunion all the way to a 10th reunion. It will be discussion focused. Panelists will share their experiences, what they have learned, and what they wish they knew earlier. We request that all attendees to please submit questions during the panelists' presentations. Please do so by clicking on the chat icon, which should be in the top right-hand corner. This is also a showcase on the success of Old Selbornians, who we are extremely proud of. So let's start. Our first panelist this evening is Mr. Lwazi Forsok, who matriculated from Selborne College in 2012, where he was custodian of the key and head boy, and will be celebrating his 10th year reunion this year. Lwazi lives in Johannesburg and is a supersport presenter for WWE wrestling show called Jumbo, WWE. Lwazi is an avid sports fan and alongside wrestling enjoys watching football, rugby, which he talks about on his own podcast called Sports Mania with Lwazi Forsok. Aside from his sporting passions, Lwazi holds a BCom in accounting from the University of Cape Town, and he's also a sales rep for a well-known pharmaceutical company. Lwazi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Alan, for the introduction and my greetings to the entire Selborne community. And I just feel so privileged to be part of this very prestigious panel. And the fact that I'm starting, I am a little bit nervous. It's been a while since I've done public speaking like this, so I hope it goes well. But yeah, I'm pretty much here just to share my story of how my past 10 years since leaving Selborne has been and what my learnings have been since then. So yeah, I matriculated in 2012 and then enrolled at the University of Cape Town for a BCom in accounting. And the plan was simple, you know, I was going to get my BCom accounting degree, do postgrad, do articles, become a CA, be rich, and life was going to be hunky-dory. But life had different plans for me, and I found that out immediately. Within my first test, I saw marks I'd never seen before, which was very shocking for someone, you know, yeah, head boy, white blazer, all those kind of things. So it did knock me down a couple of pegs. And it would be a struggle, to be honest, you know, throughout my varsity career. It was very, very tough, lots of ups and downs. But I did try and push through up until my final year. And I was so close to finishing, and then I failed one module. I did a sub for it in January 2016, failed that sub as well. And then I was faced with a dilemma where I had to repeat a year for only one course, which was in the second semester of that year. So 2016 was very interesting for me because now I had a lot of free time. It was a forced gap year, you could say. And through that, a lot of my friends were actually suggesting, you know, in your spare time, why don't you try campus radio? You've got a voice for radio, apparently. So I gave that a shot. I enrolled in UCT Radio, and within a few months, like I pretty much skyrocketed. And that really showed me that year that, okay, I actually have a passion and a talent for media. So what the plan was then, after I did complete the degree, got to qualify finally, but then I decided that actually I want to take a different path as opposed to the CA route. So I want to push this media thing. And you can imagine, I mean, I had very supportive friends and family, but it was also a huge shock for them. And it's like, you know, you're this academic person, now you're going into this new realm, which, you know, is untested, you could say, and also there's no guarantees. But I was very determined that, you know, I'm going to follow my heart, even if there's no money or anything like that. I'm going to push, push, push. So through that, I started submitting demos to a lot of radio stations in Cape Town at the time, as well as some Joburg stations. I wasn't getting any replies. And then one opportunity did arise where there was a radio station, which is a non-profit organization at Red Cross Children's Hospital. So they saw my credentials and they were like, okay, we only have the children at the hospital who present, but you do have this accounting qualification. We need an accountant for behind the scenes. So I felt, okay, at least this is something different. I'm not, in corporate, which is what I didn't want at all. So this was something different, and I got to be there for actually a couple of years, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And concurrently, I also started my own YouTube channel, which was a wrestling YouTube channel. And through that, I gained some traction on social media to the point where SuperSport actually contacted me. But that would also be a long process. It wasn't just sort of quick and easy. It was a lot of discussions, a lot of back and forth. But eventually, sort of middle of last year, they contacted me and said, okay, things are really happening now. And that's when I decided to take a leap of faith and move from Cape Town to Johannesburg, because I was like, okay, this is going to happen and I'm coming to Joburg to clinch it. Little did I know that still there'd be more twists and turns on this road. And that's when actually I reached out to a fellow old boys on the panel now, custodian of 2002, Loisa Mabete. I reached out to him and we had a very nice lunch, and I was just sort of pouring my heart to him and saying that, yo, I've taken these big risks, things are not working out, I'm freaking out, what is going to happen, But he was very understanding, very supportive as well. And he suggested that, in the meantime, why don't you get another job, And luckily he did know someone who could sort of help me out. I went through that interview process, and that's how I ended up at the pharmaceutical company. So I've been working there now for a year, and then in the midst of this as well. So in July this year, the SuperSport thing finally materialized as well. So I'm lucky enough now at the moment where I've got 2 jobs, but really excited that I'm doing something that's never been done before, having a wrestling channel on SuperSport, So you can catch that every Thursday, 7 o'clock, channel 128. But yeah, I'm really living my dream right now. I'm so happy. I feel very fulfilled. And I think 2 key learnings that I took away from Selborne is that the first one is palm of virtue, reward goes to the brain. I think that was really instilled in my heart and in my mind. And that's what saw me be able to go against the grain, sort of not follow what everyone thinks you should do, but do what I want to do. And through perseverance, you can actually make it. And I'm really fortunate that this webinar is at the right time when I've made it, in inverted commas. So I'm lucky for that. And then also, I think what was amazing is just the network of being part of the Old Selbornian Association, because like I mentioned, I got to reach out to Loiso, but also I got to attend a lot of events, OSA events here in Joburg, met a lot of other old boys who were trying to link me up. And it was just amazing to see the support and camaraderie, because these people don't even know me, half of them, but they're so willing to help, willing to lend an ear. And I think that's also what I'd like to be for future Old Selbornians coming up, where it doesn't matter if I don't know you, but through that Selborne bond, we're able to take care of each other in whatever way. So I'd just like to encourage whoever's still at Selborne right now, hang on to that love of the black and white, It's really a privilege to be able to say that you are from Selborne College. And I can see, to this day, we're all so proud, whether you matriculated 2012 or 1972, it doesn't matter. We all have that same passion driving through us. So I'll leave it at that, but I'm very, very grateful to be able to be here and just address everyone, and wishing everyone all the best. And I'm excited for this week, 150th, it's my 10-year reunion, so it's going to be epic. Yeah, thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Luazi. We'll be watching your career with great interest. Our next panelist is Mr. Loiso Mbeke, who matriculated from Selborne College in 2002, where he was also the custodian of the key and head boy. Loiso and his class will be celebrating their 20th reunion this year. Loiso started his schooling at Selborne Primary, then progressed to college. He was a keen sportsman who played for the first team in 4 different sporting codes. After matric, Loiso went to study a BCom majoring in economics and finance at the University of Port Elizabeth, now called Nelson Mandela. After his undergrad, he went to further his studies in Europe. He was supposed to be studying, but spent more time traveling. Loiso started his work career in 2006 at the Old Mutual graduate program in the investment team. He continued to work in the financial service industry for the next 6 years, till he did his MBA at the University of Stellenbosch in 2012. After his MBA, he embarked in a career in banking, first in the strategy team and then had different roles in digital banking. He's currently working at Standard Bank in Johannesburg, heading up one of the e-commerce teams. Loyiso is married and has 2 daughters. The eldest is 5 and the youngest is just over a year old. Loyiso, over to you.
Thank you so much, Alan. Firstly, it's a great honor and privilege for me to partake in this panel. I think as a young Selbornian, attending all the founders, you hear all the names, Rodney Boy, Eric McWilliam, Keith Flemmer, and it's really a great honor to be on the same panel as everyone. I think just before I start, let me just talk about my story, and hopefully there can be some lessons from my story. So, growing up Esada, which is 200 kilometers from East London, went to Selborne Primary Hostel, and also went through to Selborne College. So when people consider are you a Selbornian, I consider myself, my blood is black and white, having spent 11 years at Selborne Primary and Hostel, and thoroughly enjoyed it, absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, my story is just going through primary school and high school, where afforded a lot of opportunities to partake and really to try different things. And for me, what really stood out was the ability to express yourself. There was always something for everyone. And as per the brief that we were given, what are the career highlights and some of the lessons we've learned from here at Selborne? I think for me, it's just taking a step back and understanding that what you do at school is very much defined. School defines what success is. If you play first team sport, you are successful. If you get academic honors or colors, you're very successful. And back in our time, if you were smart, there used to be a merit list. And if you were on that merit list, you were smart. If you played first team, you're good at sport. So I think my first story is there were guys that were super smart. They were the types that were getting 100% for all subjects. So if you weren't in that bucket, so you kind of got the self infused that you're not smart, because that's the type of guys that are smart. And so coming out of Selborne, going to university, I've always known I'm an above average guy who does a little bit of sport. And going to varsity, now you're getting distinctions. And in high school, 80% is the distinction and varsity is 75%. That 5% makes a big difference. I'd always just been below that. So suddenly at varsity now, I'm getting distinctions. I was like, oh, am I smart? Everything in my mind had defined to me that I was not smart. I was just above average. So that's my first year. Second year, I arrived at varsity. Third year, I realized there's a university life. So I had fun. I was partying more than studying, and I failed. And I think that was a big reality check, but managed to pull myself together and managed to finish my degree. So that's the first lesson. School is very much defined. It defines success, and that does not have to define you. So that's the first lesson. Then the second lesson, I played first team rugby, and I was fortunate. I finished matric when I was 19. So I had an extra bite of the cherry. So I had 4 years of open rugby. So I think by the time you're playing fourth year open rugby, you have a good chance of playing first team. So again, I didn't consider myself a good rugby player, because in our year, we had 2 guys who played SA schools. So in my mind, definition of success was SA schools, and half the team played Craven Week. I didn't play Craven Week. So when I arrived at varsity, I thought I was just going to study, play a little bit of rugby. Fate had it, I got lost. I went to the first team field. They said, hey, can you play? I said a little bit. Ended up playing rugby, ended up playing for the first team. I was the 4th person to play first team straight out of school, high school, to first team at UPE. First was Denis Leroux, second was our own Andre Force, third was Luke Watson, then I was the 4th one. So again, definition of success in school does not have to define who you are and what that has to do with you in the future. Postponed after my studies, went overseas, and my career started. So everything up to that point, everything that I'd done had kind of turned out well for me. As mentioned, I was head boy and did pretty okay in sport. I got retrenched in 2008 during the global financial crisis. That was very tough. It was the first time I had a major setback. And I think the lessons and the family support that I had, as well as just being able to know that something has happened before where you aren't chosen for that team or you didn't get that mark that you wanted. So that failure for me was the first set of failure that I had, and it was really tough. But I think the skills that I learned from Selborne were able to guide me through that process, and definitely family support, friends. And just also in terms of career, I think what you learn at high school and what you end up doing could be very different, and a lot of lessons along the way. And some of the lessons that I learned from Selborne, teamwork, respecting each other, being courteous, learning manners, really has helped me in my career. In order now, I'm in a management position, how to manage people. So the lessons learned from being a head boy has definitely played a role in the way how I manage and how I lead my teams. And from a reward perspective, or what are the results that I've learned, I think for me, what Selborne has really taught is having the determination that you can believe in what you want to believe and actually having the courage to go for those dreams and goals. So I think with the wide Selborne network where you are in a class with someone and they've done well, so it inspires confidence. So I think for me, Selborne has really been a good ground where it teaches you the lessons and the skill to really believe in yourself. When you walk in a room, you say, I'm a Selbornian, and you feel like you've got every right to be in that room. So that's given me the confidence. I think, Alan, I'll end there, and then I'm happy to take questions later on.
Thanks, Louis. So incredible. A great story. Our next panelist is Mr. Keith Flemmer, who matriculated from Selborne College in 1992, where he was the custodian of the key and head boy. Keith and his class will be celebrating their 20th reunion this year. Keith qualified as a CASA in 2000 and a CFA chart holder in 2001 after having attended UCT and completing his articles at Deloitte in Johannesburg. He spent 18 months working for Credit Suisse in London and subsequently returned to Johannesburg, where he joined Standard Bank, working in credit risk for the next 6 years. Keith moved to Absa Barclays Johannesburg in 2007 and spent 12 years working in their loan syndications team. In 2019, Keith joined RMB in Johannesburg, heading up their markets credit risk team. Keith is married with 2 young daughters. He loves to travel and paddle. Keith, over to you.
Thanks, Alan. Hi, everyone. And sure, I wish it was my 20th reunion. It gained another 10 years back in my life, but I'm getting old, and it's great to be here and exciting, and I'm amongst very esteemed guests. So thank you for letting me talk. So, you know, I'm obviously representing the class of '92 many years ago, and it's great to be part of a very special 150 years. It's really special celebration. Really, really awesome to be here. I think it's quite a. Let me just get my little piece. I think what did the custodian? I mean, I think you get elevated quite a lot at the school. It's a wonderful position to attain, and you know, my class elected me, and I think that gave me such a start in life. You know, it's still to this day, 30 years later, you know, I'm still recognized at that, and so that's given me a huge bonus, and I can only appreciate Selborne and thank Selborne for that benefit, and to the boys that I studied with. And so I was trying to think now, what does Selborne mean to the class of 1992? You know, I think what has Selborne done for us, and how do I connect the dots? I think firstly, Selborne represents everything that's great about East London as a start. You know, it's got the cleanest air in the world. You know, the next spot is Antarctica. It's friendly, the outdoor lifestyle, this heritage that we have, and the strong family focus. And I all think that combines to create something special. And trying to articulate what the secret sauce that Selborne has, and like what makes us different from the rest. And I think you're always going to get something special when you put a whole lot of talented kids together with very passionate teachers, and I'll just underscore that because I think that made a huge difference in a world-class facility. So you're always going to get some special stuff, and we actually at school, it is quite amazing the talent that was there. And if I look back, what happened, and so what did Selborne instill in us? I think it's already been mentioned already. Some of the things, and we're talking about success. It instilled, made us tough, and a drive for excellence as well. It made us very competitive, and I think maybe things have changed in the last 30 years, but it doesn't look like it having chatted to you other guys. But I think that spirit still lives on in all of us, and makes us strong. And invariably the question comes, and how successful have we been since then? We had such a good start in life. What's happened? And I mean, if I look back, we did have the international sportsmen. We had a Springbok rugby captain. We had some successful businessmen. But as you get older, I think it's harder to define success and what it means to a person. Now, I would see success as a school is making whoever arrived a better version of themselves than when they left, when they arrived. So I think just that incremental improvement and changing each individual, making them a better version. And I think it's a hard thing to put on paper, but I feel that's what happened to us at Selborne. And it's playing out later in life in achievements. And in our year, we have actually a father of incoming custodian. So he's done a great job. And also we had a father of one of the squash captain who won the SA School squash competition. So all these sort of things are really creating class acts and passing that on to their children. And it's great that we can have fathers and sons at the school. Some fathers have been way too successful. We just had a dad recently in the last month and a half, and at 48, that's quite impressive. So we've got lots of successful fathers at Selborne. I think also in terms of success, if I see the friendships that were formed at school and the bond, it was a 5-year stint, or 10-year stint, and that stuff that's lasted 30 years. And the boys that are coming back are a big reason for it and they've traveled from all over the world, is because they have a connection with the people they spend at school with in those precious years. And I think that's testament to create that environment where you can create those relationships and those bonds that last forever is something special. That's what it means to me. I think what Selborne means to a lot of people. And I'm so excited to be here. Heading down this week to see all of you. And I can't wait to connect and see what you've done and live the experience. And thanks very much for inviting. That will be an amazing weekend. So me and take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. And you owe me for taking 10 years off your life. 10 years is a lot, but okay. Our next panelist is Mr. Eric McWilliam, who matriculated from Selborne College in 1977, where he was the custodian of the key and head boy. Eric also played first team rugby and cricket and provincial soccer, which at that time was a non-school sport. He then completed his 2 years of national service. Eric and his classmates will be celebrating their 45th reunion this year. Eric entered the world of sales in the Eastern Cape and ran Cheesebro Ponds. He then joined the insurance industry in 1987 with Liberty Life, and in 1996, Eric opened his own brokerage until present. Eric is married to Cheryl and has been married for 38 years. He has 3 wonderful daughters, aged between 37 and 25 years of age. Eric also has 2 grandkids. Eric, over to you.
Firstly, you mustn't give my girlfriend's name away. My wife is Shirley. Right. I want to ditto what everybody else has said. I mean, a lot has been said about the school itself. And you go back to your roots from primary school, from when you were taught to share. I mean, we come from a large family, so we had to share. So Selborne gave us opportunities that we could try. Example, music, cultural things, chess, something that we were not exposed to at home. You know, so you would find your niche and eventually get into that, whatever it might be, whether it's from a cultural and music, from an acting, from a sport point of view. And I mean, I'm going back, as most of us were. We went from primary school right through to matric. I mean, discipline back in our days, as Rodney would know. I mean, you were clubbed. The discipline was strong. You got hit, you got caned. It never did any harm to anybody, because that was the discipline and the rule in those days. If you were naughty at school, you got a club. And I just say that discipline has carried through for everybody. And I say discipline, rhythm, actually starts at home. Team sports were my preference, as a lot of people do, because they get in, because then you learn to, as I mentioned earlier, you learn to share that. But as a family, a large family, I mean, we had to play team sports. But I also personally did gymnastics, which to me was a very good discipline. I presume it's like swimming. It's like those individual sports where the discipline comes in. I soon became a leader, where you start realizing, like most of us did, where you become class captain, you become a team leader, you become, you know, a captain of your different sporting codes through all the years. And then, as you say, you know, then after school, I was a chairman of a few organizations, like Louis has been, and then now, yeah, I've been running my own brokerage. So that whole leadership point of view and managing your own person firstly, and then as a leader is running a team, whether it be your secretaries, your admin ladies, whatever it is. And what the school has done for me, I think we were all lucky enough to attend Selborne. I think we were lucky enough to be there. After we finished school, we knew we had a solid grounding. We had learned manners. We had learned discipline, which I think reflects in all our workplaces. But on top of that all, I think that camaraderie, you know, just from the old Selborne ethos, sticks in all of us, right through. I think the network of Selborne boys around the world has helped so many people get employment, get jobs, and it's been mentioned already. I think if a Selborne boy sits in a meeting with others, and there's a challenge for a meeting, that Selborne boy, there's a good chance he will get the thing, if the Selborne boy has been known. Because Selborne is a known name throughout the world. Not only South Africa, throughout the world. I said I could waffle on, but the camaraderie amongst old boys worldwide and the tradition we share is unmatched, certainly in most countries and maybe worldwide. Guys, I want to thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Eric, and please apologize to your girlfriend. I'm really sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, our next panelist is Mr. Rodney Boy, who matriculated from Selborne College in 1972, where he was custodian of the key and the head boy. A passionate sportsman, Rodney's matric class of 1972 were the centenary matric class, and 50 years on, they celebrate their 50th reunion on the 150th Jubilee year. That is quite an inspirational story. Rodney got a business economics degree from Stellenbosch University in 1977, an honors degree from the University of Port Elizabeth, now NMU, in industrial and organizational psychology in 78. An honors degree in labor, law and in industrial relations in 1985. He got a master's of commerce degree, industrial and organizational psychology from Rand Afrikaans University, now the University of Johannesburg, in 1981. He's registered with the Healthcare Professionals Council of South Africa as a psychologist since 1981. He has held senior positions in numerous industries, companies, and institutions. He has contributed as a member on numerous committees and institutions in South Africa. In his career, he has developed and customized practical and measurable solutions to assist organizations and people to become more competent and improve performance related to all spheres of people performance as well as organizational development. Rodney has had an extremely successful career as a psychologist and has worked and supported many companies. Rodney is married to Merlene, and he has a son who is a CA and a daughter who is a vet. Rodney, over to you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much. Very interesting. And really nice to people that I'd heard of who went through very similar, paths as I did.
Sorry, Rodney, just before you start, can you see the presentation?
Yeah, I can. It's not really necessary if you want to put it up. Okay. Okay, guys, we're coming off a 150-kilometer hike, our class 72. And this is not actually wasn't in here, but I just want to tell you, it's been the most wonderful experience I've had in a long, long time. Some of the people I hadn't seen for 50 years, and to spend 8 days with them, sharing stories, sharing beers around the bra, sharing fishing rods, and it was just absolutely incredible walking along the Transkei coast and spending time with these guys. Okay. My presentation, I'm actually going to share some personal stuff with you. My biggest personal challenge I had to face at a very early age after leaving school. And I'm going to talk as well about how I overcame it. And also, I think the contribution that Selborne had in helping me get over the hurdle. During my time at Selborne, I developed an attitude to life, which put simply was, do what you have to do in life, because if you don't, then you're going to back away from a lot of things. And also, do what you choose to do it well. And I'm going to touch on some of the challenges that prepared me for dealing with setbacks, and also to touch on the rewards that motivated me to continue. I chose sport over academics. When people asked my mother, when I went to Selborne, how Rodney was doing at Selborne, her reply was, unfortunately, he inherited dog genes. Every time a ball bounced, he chased the ball. And so he didn't have too much time to do any homework. So she didn't tell them that I'd grown up on the farm. I had milk cows before and after school, and I had to catch the train to school and walk 4 kilometers after rugby and cricket practice. So one of the big challenges in my 72 year was the centenary year. It was a very busy year for us with multiple leadership roles, both school and provincial sports. There were many dignitaries visiting the school, Dr. Chris and Barbara Barnard, Lord Selborne, and of course, Annie Get Your Gun. I said to everybody in the first team and all the prefects, they had to go and audition, and most of them got in there and really enjoyed it. But it took a lot of time. And then, of course, passing matric was left as a problem for the end of the year. Okay, some of the rewards from Selborne for me at that time, but I think we just have to say that Selborne College environment was conducive to excellence. I mean, when I went from Cambridge Junior School to Selborne, I just felt different. It was a much more competitive environment, and people expected from you the best. And I think we all experienced that pride, loyalty, and sense of belonging, especially you running out onto the rugby field or walking out to go and bat. And we had some of the best teachers. Clyde Broster, you might not know him, but he was not just a teacher for me. He was a mentor and a big brother I never had. On the hike now, walked every single leg. We have a teacher who is very close, and he's a legend, over 80 years old. And he's walked I think the first 5 legs of that, and not even feeling stiff. Guys, he really good there. I also realized after school, during interviews, acceptance into clubs and networking, how the mentioning of Selborne College changed the whole tone of the interaction that was taking place. So attending Selborne College had very positive stereotypes with benefits. And I want to give you a good example, which happened just last week. We loaned a vehicle from East Cape Motors The guy who loaned it to us was the owner, Chris Theodosio. And when I went to pick up the vehicle last Wednesday, I happened to run into him. And one of the things I said to him was, Chris, you know, what made you decide to lend us your 600,000 Rand new vehicle? It still smelt all new inside, everything. It looks like full of mud now. And you know what he said to me? He said to me, Selborne College is East London's best friend. And I said, well, why do you say that? What do you mean by that? And he said, because Selborne is the most valuable and well-known brand in East London. And that's pretty true. He said when he meets guys from, they don't know East London all that well, but when you say Selborne College, he knows what it's all about. The Old Selbornian network, when I was a student, they secured me a vac job to drive heavy-duty trucks. And Guy Nebby Shaman and Derek Barter were doing the same thing with me. And I used to pay for my whole year, next year, on that salary. Some of the confidence-building leadership positions have been mentioned. Sports awards, my inclusion into the SA Schools unofficial side, that was a big one for me. And Victor Ladorum, I didn't do athletics full time, but I did put in a lot of practice before some of the events. And then also the bursary from Doc Craven to go and play rugby. And then my army challenges. Loisto, you said you were 19 years old when you left. When I was 19 years old, I was an infantry officer at a platoon base with 48 troops on the Anglo border, 230 km from the nearest other military camp. And that was really the ultimate application of leadership and responsibility with potentially serious consequences, and they were. And I have to thank Selborne for giving me the grounding in leadership in order to handle it. And there were some really hairy situations. And I think the turning point in my life is when I broke my neck playing rugby in October 1974, which paralyzed me left side. My planned future in sport come to an abrupt end. I was now a permanently disabled sportsman and a very average academic with a bursary to play rugby at Stellenbosch. But what I needed now was a relevant degree. The academic challenges when I got to Stellenbosch, studying at an Afrikaans university with Afrikaans textbooks, a real challenge for me and my dictionary in that whole thing. And not having studied for 2 years, being in the army, I need to go and learn how to learn again. So the essence for me, in terms of this big challenge that I had, was to transform myself from a disabled sportsman to a successful scholar in order to find a career I was passionate about. So the attitudes that I took up when I was at Selborne about do what you have to do. And if you're going to take it on, then do it properly and put your mind to it. Okay. And the big change though, is that there would be more time, less sport and more time for academics. But yeah, my dog genes didn't understand that totally. Then my academic rewards, as Alan said, I got an economics degree, 2 honours degrees and a master's degree. But the key for me was when I met head of department at UPE, where I did my honours in 1978, Professor Louis Comfer. He was considered to be one of the top organizational psychologists in the world. He ignited the spark that made me passionate about the application of organizational psychology. Registered psychologist 81, won the Middleburg top honors student in 85, became a member of the NMMU Business School Advisory Council, and I co-authored quite a few articles in psychological journals, and the highlight being for me the research and implementation results of the stereotype reduction intergroup relations bridging program. It was presented at the International Best Papers proceeding in 1991 in Miami, Florida, and was recognized as the 38th best paper of the 77 that were published. And that program, we started developing I was responsible for social responsibility for Pilkington PLC, and it was in order to prepare South Africa for 1994. And we were training up student councillors at universities, big corporate companies, and schools. Okay, and then my career, my owner, independent consultant. I think my biggest career challenge was heading up the Ugandan railways for the Rift Valley Railways, fulfilling a dream to work in Africa. When this came to an end, I started working. I worked as an organization psychologist to help other companies and in the community in order to help increase my own knowledge and my consultant process skills. Some of the organizations I helped: Community Chest, UP Management Development Center, EP Cricket Board, and at the strategic planning session I did for them, the band came out that everybody hated. Assisted the Addo National Park in becoming the Greater Addo National Park, and the Business Chamber. Right, and then career awards. The career awards to consult and work in East and West Germany, United Kingdom, Thailand, China, Saudi Arabia, Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, contributing to the community. I now play golf, and being able to play 207 different golf courses around the world. 208th is next week at Kingswood in George. Fish for trout and salmon in Scottish Highlands and drink their whiskey. Yellowfish and Nile perch in Uganda, tigers in Western Zambia, and to fish the Transkei coast. So those are the things that I'm passionate about: overlanding, fishing, and golf. And to overland with my wife and friends to every country in East and Southern Africa, including Serengeti, Ngorongoro Crater, South Luangwa Park. And probably the most important now is to visit my kids and my 5 grandkids. And thank you to Selborne for accepting me as a scholar from Cambridge in 1968. Thank you.
Thanks, Rodney. A wonderful story, a great story. Okay, we're doing well for time. I think we're going to post a single question to each panelist. And I'm going to start with Luwazi. The question for you, sir. Do you think the nature and pressure of being a head boy of your years at Selborne was more or less intense, pressurized? And if so, why?
Sorry, Alan, can you just repeat the question, please?
Okay, let me do it again. Do you think the nature or / pressure of being a head boy of your year at Selborne was more or less intense, pressurized? And if so, why?
That's a bit of a tough question. I don't know how honest I could be, but 2012 was a very interesting year. So I would say it was highly pressurized, I would say. But like overall, I thought it was a great experience. And it's something that really, I think, prepared me for life as well in terms of leadership and just handling high pressure situations.
But Luwazi, you did manage it very well. I watched you, and I thought, you know, the pressure of being a head boy must be quite intense because you've got a lot of things to do, and I think you did a superb job.
Thank you so much.
This question is to Luiso. What role should alumni play in the life and the future of a school, generally speaking?
I think the Old Boys alumni should help put the school in a position where it can provide a legacy, where tomorrow is better than today. And for example, that could be making the school accountable as part of the governance framework. And when I mean making the school accountable, the Selborne has certain traditions which I think the school should never let go of, and despite the changing times. So that's what I mean, where it must help put the school in a place where it's better than today. and also hold the school accountable, especially to those traditions and norms that have helped build the school, but at the same time to be agile enough to move with the times. For example, it's a technology world where who knows what the world could be about coming physically into the school. So it's just making sure that the old boys help put the school in a position where they can be better than today, but also not foregoing the traditions and norms.
Thanks, Louis. So to Mr. Keith Flemmer, does your year group maintain regular contact with each other? And what are your plans for Founders Day this year?
Sure. Hi. Yeah, we've sure. We've kept in touch. We've got a WhatsApp group that we keep chatting to and exchanging news, and it's quite great to keep in touch like that. It's also quite sad. We've had a lot of people die. In our year, it's quite sad. We've had about 6-7 deaths from our year, which is quite a lot. But I think the guys actually every now and then go to Old Boys in East London for a drink with the class. We had catch-ups in the UK and in Joburg. So the people do keep in touch, and it's a great way to just not benchmark, but just catch up with a past life and connect with people that you outside your normal world. So that's great. And in terms of this weekend, I mean, we've got a whole schedule. We're obviously doing the Founders Day. We've got an awards ceremony. We've got and we've got the Spit Braai that we're going to. There's a golf game organized. So there's a full-on reunion. We probably can't party as hard as we used to be able to, and we used to play water polo with the teams, and we try to play touch rugby with the school. But I think we long gone. We're going to put ourselves in an ICU if we give that a go. But we're quite excited to be part of the events, and we're going to give it our best shot for making it a full go. We've got probably about 50-60 people coming, so that's it's a fair, and we're still trying to market it and trying to get the last guys to come. We've got guys coming from New Zealand, from the States, from Europe. So it's in a big event, and we're very excited. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. I know you guys have remained in contact, and I mean, I've met you up in Joburg. We've had events, and I just think the whole network, actually, with Old Boys in general, not only specific classes, but in general, works extremely well. So thanks for that. Eric, what is your most outstanding memory from Selborne College and your matric year?
My one was, well, I would say, I mean, there's many highlights, there's many individual things, but you don't want to mention individuals because that's a bit unfair. But I think my highlight is in our matric year when I was head boy in the meetings in that middle room upstairs above the statue, using the prefect's room. Now, we actually created the setup now, which I presume still runs today, where each prefect has got a portfolio to deal with. Where prior to that, I think it was just a general thing where prefects were prefects, and that was it. So we created these jobs where a prefect looked after the grade, what's the standard 6s, the grade 8s, and a prefect looked after the tuck shop, a prefect looked after this. So each prefect had a function to do for the year. So I think for me, setting that up, the team set that up, and I think that was a highlight for me.
Thanks, Eric. Rod, an easy one for you. Are there any unusual careers amongst your class group? I'm making you think.
Yeah, you are. Well, I think if I talk about, to buy some time, I think if I talk about the most successful one, is probably the guest of honor, Michael Francis. Francis was CA worked in East London, and then moved away to the UK, I think it was, and set up a company. And Fraz has been very successful with the companies in USA, and I think he's used it very wisely in terms of connections with the school. Other careers, some of them didn't work or had more holiday. They inherited money and fished and played all the games. But I think the thing for me that struck me about the class of 72 is how they contributed, and just listening to the guys, how big their contribution was in their communities. I mean, take a guy like George Uverod, for example, who was my deputy head. I mean, George was a department head of English at Rhodes, but I know he got involved with Delta Motor Corporation with education programs for underprivileged, accelerating that kind of thing. So that was another one I can think of. Others, SAB all over the world. Ian Jones done very, very well there. Yeah, not too many very different ones. Steve Clark was a very good attorney, and I believe he got a few of his classmates, kept them out of jail. So he created a sort of a defense system for the class if it was required. Yeah, I think those are the only ones I can think of.
Okay, Rod, that's great. Guys, there seem to be no more questions, so I think we're going to wrap up now. I would just like to thank our panelists, Mr. Lwazi Folsock, Mr. Luisa Mbeke, Mr. Keith Flemmer, Mr. Eric McWilliam, and Mr. Rodney Boy for giving of their time this evening. And it was great chatting to you as Old Selbornians, as fellow Old Selbornians in our 150th year. Last year, we set up a committee to run 10 webinars in 2022 as part of the 150 celebrations. And we plan to continue with the process in 2023. But I would just like to take this opportunity in thanking Mr. Max Norman, Mr. Luis Mbeke, and Mrs. Jeanette Hensberg for all their hard work. These webinars have been a great success, and we will certainly continue in the future. So I can only wish you all a very good night, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Go. See you guys at Old Boys, guys.
That's right.